Welcome to the Directors Club podcast, your go-to resource for childcare center owners and directors. Each week we dive into the world of childcare management, sharing valuable tips, tools, and resources to help you build enrollment, retain your top teachers, and streamline your operations. With a casual and lighthearted approach, we unlock the secrets of creating a thriving childcare center. Let's laugh, learn, and grow together. This is the Directors Club podcast. Hey there, it's Noelle from the Directors Club, and I know you have the same problem I do. We have a newer staff, less experienced staffing. Finding the right professional development, the right way to mentor, finding the time to do all this stuff is really hard. What I wanted to share with you was a few tips that you can use to mentor your team. And I know that it's easy to just say, oh, go get 20 hours of professional development or however many hours your state needs. We can always encourage them to go take professional development, and they typically do it based on the requirement. But what about meeting with them? First thing I want to say is kick off the year, or now if you haven't done it, with their annual review. Look at their review. Sit down and talk to them and say, what are your goals for the year? Like, I'm seeing that in your review, like you really could use some more training on transitions or classroom daily schedule or supporting the lead, like whatever their goals are, and talk about their goals. Write out 3 goals that they could work on over the next 12 months. Now, while I'm talking about that, I talked to another director yesterday, and she was telling us that she handed out a goal sheet for everybody and asked them to hand it in by a certain time and write their goals. People handed them in, and they were personal goals. Some people didn't write any. Some people said they didn't want to share, which I thought was funny. And I think before you can even hand out a sheet and say, hey, go do your goals, you got to talk to them about it. Maybe at a next staff meeting, talk about what goal setting is, that it's a great thing and that you want to support them in it. And what are 3 things that they struggle the most with in the classroom? And then let's work on that. All right, so now you're going to have this list of all of your employees and what their 3 goals are. Look at those goals. Maybe you have someone that says, my goal this year is to improve on transitions in the classroom. And you're like, oh, I got this teacher in pre-K and she's like amazing at transitions. Look at that list. And the next time you have an extra, like this summer, if people are calling out with vacations and taking days off and all of a sudden you have an extra, be like, can you take me if I needed help with transitions? And you could say, no, I want you to go hang out with Vanessa in her classroom today, and I want you to look at the transitions. And then say to Vanessa, Noelle's working on transitions, and she's really looking to get some guidance on new ways and effective ways to do transitions. And then that's an intentional way to use the extra versus sending someone home because you're reinvesting back into the professional development of your team, or just throwing people in classrooms and not having an intention on why you're doing it. That is a great way to offer mentorship inside the classrooms, and also really supports that collaborative learning amongst one another. Another thing you can do as part of this plan is have a staff meeting. After the staff, end the staff meeting an hour early, and keep all your team leaders inside there. Keep all the team leaders to stay. And then what you can do is teach them how to mentor everybody. Clearly, your lead teachers are going to know some of the skills their co-teachers or the floats need to learn. Come up with a plan. Go around the room and say, what does your co-teacher need to learn to do? And maybe it is being more effective at circle time. Like maybe they just stand there and don't do anything, and the lead's like doing all the disciplining and worrying about the art project that's not set up. Have them start mentoring. Give them steps they can take to go about mentoring teachers. As we develop these team leaders, whoever's leading your classrooms, I don't know what position, what title you give them, but think about that. How can you develop your classroom leaders to mentor other people in the center? That's super important. Another thing that's super helpful in up-leveling your team is recognizing them and celebrating with them. If you're working with somebody and they have I've really all of a sudden even just tried the new strategies of transitions or been successful with a recognize, mention it, write me a note, call me out in the middle of it. You're doing a really good job with transitions. Like that little connection between you noticing as the leader and them doing the actual things that you want them to do from the skills that they are learning. Because we don't want someone to just take a class or workshop, call it a day, right? We don't want that. Think about how you can recognize them and celebrate their achievements, and not just the big ones like, oh, Cindy just got her degree. And of course, that's a huge celebration, but also celebrate the little things as well. Another thing that I think is great is bringing in, if you can, speakers and experts, even if they're on Zoom or to your staff meetings or to a professional development day. If you can find somebody that you can afford to bring in and talk about like the topic that you actually need, like whatever the struggle is. And lastly, I think another easy way to up-level your team is to have them come to a staff meeting with 4 or 6 of their biggest struggles. What is their biggest struggle in the day? You take your team and divide them up into 2, 3, or 4 groups, smaller groups, and we all go around the circle, and I share one of my biggest struggles. And maybe if we're going to keep on my topic of transitions, maybe I'm like, I'm struggling with the transition from indoor to outdoor to in, lunch to rest, like whatever the struggles are, maybe it's all of them. And then I get a minute to share my struggle. I get another minute for anyone to ask any clarifying questions if I didn't explain myself or if they need more info. And then they get 4 minutes to, everyone goes around the circle and gives me tips. And I tell everybody, don't say, already done that, did that. Because repetition is critical in early education, right? We want to keep repeating the things that we're doing so the children learn them. And that's exactly what you want to do with this. You don't want to say, oh, I already did that. Because you know what? Maybe it didn't work then, but it may work now. Or you may need to do it for 3 weeks before you give up. They write down all the things that they learned from that feedback. And for however long you want to do this, they can just keep going around the circle. Maybe I get another turn. Maybe I don't. It depends on how long you want to do this for. But I've found it to be super beneficial if you make the groups mixed up with people they don't typically work with, even if you're a super small center. And it will build teamwork. It will greatly encourage peer-to-peer learning. It will encourage problem solving. I cannot tell you how critical this has been in my center when we offer collaboration sessions, as what we call them, and they will solve problems on their own. Like I will see people, which I recently just did. There were 2 women sitting in the break room, and I was walking by, and they were talking about a problem one of them was having in her room. And it's so great to see that, because I wouldn't have seen that years ago. And ever since we made this part of our culture years ago, we have seen this improvement of our team, not just coming to me and being like, oh, this kid needs to go home, or bringing a child to the office because can't deal with it anymore, or quitting because they're super stressed out. We are now like really cultivating a culture here of collaboration, problem solving together, peer-to-peer support, and it has been very helpful and beneficial to us. Today, I hope you learned some tips on ways you can up-level your team, right? Provide that professional development that they so desperately need, because we all know we're not going to send them to 20 hours of workshops and they're going to come back and be a better teacher. We need to teach them how to be strategic on their goals so that they work on the things that they need and they just willy-nilly take workshops. We need to encourage them and praise them for when they do it. We want to be excited and along the way with celebrating. And we want to talk about problems. And we want to be open that we're struggling with things with each other and get help from one another, because your center is a huge wealth of resources. If you took everybody in a room and just looked and sat for a minute and reflected on their experiences inside the classroom and outside the classroom and all the years of experience that you have, even if someone only has 2, they're going to add so much value to those collaborative conversations. Oh, and I forgot to say, don't forget to be more strategic with your extras when you have them, especially this summer. What can you do this summer to uplevel, like to get more engaged teachers? I was just thinking we have a newer teacher who's not as engaged, and so they put her in a classroom where the lead teacher's super good at directing the new people to get engaged and get more comfortable. Think of ways that you can do that and delegate and build up your leadership team to mentor. Hope this helped you with some strategies to develop your team that won't take you as much time, because it's not. Some of these things are super easy to implement without you having to get too involved in it. I hope you have a great day today and enjoying the summer. And if you can, head to the show notes and rate the podcast. I would love to see what you think and how we're doing. And I hope you have a great day, and I'm cheering you on. Bye, everybody.